Brother Gustavo. First of all, thank you, Brother Gustavo, for joining us. It's a really honor to have you for tonight, especially being Wednesday, which is the day of Saint Joseph, as we now learned, right? So it's excellent. So, Brother Gustavo is from Heralds of the Gospel, and we've known him for many, many years, thanks to Henry and Karina, who's introduced to them. And for those who consecrated, they were actually. Were you guys? I wasn't there the first time you guys went up, so I'm not sure if you guys had a chance to actually meet him. But
Yes,
always,
yes.
yeah, always full of you know, knowledge and so forth. So it's a really honor to have him here. So,
Oh,
Brother
well.
Gustavo, it's all yours.
Oh, well, thank you very much. Okay, you can hear me well, right? No problem,
Yep.
because sometimes are very good. So happy. I'm super happy to be with you today. See, I have been in the Heralds of the Gospel since 1986, right? And I have to tell you, it's a continual, fantastic experience. Why? Because we're always finding more about Our Lady, more about St. Joseph, more about the Catholic Church. And this is such a treasure that we have to be constantly sharing with everybody. So, it has never been a dull moment in my life as a herald, right? We are religious. We are here in Schomburg, and we are super happy to, so somehow to invite you to discover more things about the church, about the beauty of everything that is related to God is so beautiful. So today, Zoom is a challenge, right? Because you have to basically sit down in front of a computer, and you're going to listen to Brother Gustavo, has only one camera and tends to be boring. So I'm going to try to, as much as possible, to make it really lively. And I would like today to talk about three different things. Well, number one is St. Joseph is in the center of our conversation today. But there are two more things that I think are going to be very, very interested, that are related to the topic, that I wanted to share with you. And number one, well, first of all, today, if you have heard about the readings, right? And also, it's super important to realize how much God intervenes in history. And he's always the Lord of history. And this is one of the most important aspects we have to see in the Gospels. So I wanted to tell you something about Christmas. And that is very, very interesting because, the enemies of the church and people who are always throwing stones and saying that all of this is basically an invention, right? Because, of course, how people are going to know what happened 2,000 years ago. And one of the main objections I've heard many times, it says that, okay, how do you know Jesus was born in December 25th? What are the proofs, right? And they throw constantly things like that at us Catholics. And because, well, sometimes we didn't have the opportunity, sometimes we didn't have the means, sometimes we didn't have the time, right? We don't know everything, but let me assure you of something: the church has always the answers there. And for many, many years, actually, there was a problem because there are no proofs, no historical proofs that our Lord Jesus Christ, the baby Jesus, was born on December 25th. So for many, many, many years, right, people said, well, it's tradition, as if tradition was something empty, as if tradition was just, it depends on the degree of what, if you're a gullible person, you believe in tradition, right? And that's not the case. And so what are the proofs we have that Jesus was born in December 25th? Any idea? Anybody? Anyone in there in the auditorium that can share? Let me tell you something that is super interesting. I'm going to share with you a picture. This is let me see if I manage to incorporate it here to my background. You must be familiar with the
Move a little bit different.
let me see, where are we? With the Dead Sea, correct? Let me see. There we go. Can you see the Dead Sea? It's one of the most inhospitable places on earth, right? This is all salt. People that go into the water just float. You cannot actually do anything but float there because of the tremendous degree of salinity, right? Well, right across there, you have a place called Qumran. And Qumran was the scenario, and let me show you. There we go. Qumran is the scenario of one of the most fascinating discoveries of archaeology. If you pay attention there, in this area here, there are caves. And in those caves, only in 1947, there were discoveries of these Dead Sea Scrolls, they are called. What are the scrolls? The scrolls are little manuscripts, right? That were hidden in containers, and because the place is so salty, right? They were preserved for more than 2,000 years. Well, guess what? It's fascinating because among the documents there, and these are not Catholics, they are all Hebrew people, Jewish people, they discovered something very interesting. They discovered the list, the schedule with the particular dates of each and every one of the priests that were serving in the temple. So what happens? Yes, we don't know when Jesus was born exactly, but there is something very interesting about this because we know the specific date when Saint Zechariah was serving in the temple. So if you're going to see that Our Lady visited her cousin when she was already pregnant for 6 months, and you are going to calculate that Our Lady 3 months later, right? Our Lady, 6 months later, she gave birth to Jesus. Guess what? Historically speaking, it's proven that our Lord was born in December 25th. Eh? So this is something very interesting that we have to keep always in mind. Why? Because there is not just empty traditions we have to believe just because somebody said so in the past. But no, there are all these phenomenal and beautiful treasures that are ready for us to understand. So this is the very first topic I wanted to talk about because it's going to connect us to the next one. And the next one is Our Lady herself. You know, to talk about St. Joseph, um, mm, the more we learn about Our Lady, the more we can talk about St. Joseph. Why? Because St. Joseph was the husband of Our Lady. So in order to understand St. Joseph better, we always have to take reference to exactly who Our Lady is. And for us to be very, very, to have a more deep understanding of who of who Saint Joseph is, who he is, who is his wife, right? Who is his, or better, who is he as a husband? We have to understand something about Our Lady, that is the Immaculate Conception. December the 8th, we celebrate the Immaculate Conception. It's a beautiful feast, but it tells us in particular who Our Lady is. Now, if we are going to see last weekend, right, during the Gospel, we had the Gospel of Saint Luke, right, where he talks about the Annunciation. And in the Annunciation, and this is why I wanted to tell you about Qumran. I wanted to tell you about these things that are discovered, that have constantly been discovered. Well, the Gospel of St. Luke is written in Greek, okay? And being written in Greek means that a lot of things are lost in translation. Why? We're always talking about that, right? We're all coming from different countries to Canada, and we all know what happens. Sometimes we want to say something, and people in English understand another, right? So we have to be very, very careful with what we say sometimes, because for us makes sense, but maybe for the people that are listening, it doesn't. So this is what happens with Greek. That's why, for instance, the Protestants are so lost regarding Our Lady. Why? Because of historical things that we don't have the time right now to talk about, but because of historical things, they lost the meaning of the Greek words. And I wanted just to show you an example how beautiful this is. When we talk about Our Lady as full of grace, let me see if I manage to share my screen here. Oh, wait. Okay. Because I wanted to show you something. Mm, mm, no.
So, Brother Gustavo, if you go along the bottom of the screen, it says share screen.
I can't see that one because it disappears on my computer. Can you believe this? This is,
Oh,
I can't see anybody. I'm just
if you scroll down, like if you scroll down with your mouse, just go below. It might show you. It'll show you the participants, polls, chat, and then share screen. If you see that, if you click on that, you'll be able to share your screen.
Oh, Michael?
Oh, or you can make him host, Jay, co-host, and he probably can.
Yeah.
I just pressed something here and everybody just, abandoned me. So I
go-
don't know where you are.
Go to the bottom where the Zoom icons are at. Click one of those and the screen
No,
should show.
no, give Jason the control. Brother Gustavo, give Jason the control. Let him take it, and then he can pass it back to you.
Okay. And
No,
how do I do?
I won't be able to see his screen. He's gonna hold on a second. Let me see if I give you the.
Wait, don't.
I can see a list of the participants. That's fantastic, but I can't just see anybody.
Do you have the two monitors, Brother Gustavo?
I do, yes.
Okay. So at the bottom of your screen, there should be two Zoom icons. One's for the participant, and the other one should be.
Oh, okay. I found it. Good. Great. Awesome. There we go. Okay. Thank you. Okay. So let me share with you the what I wanted to show you. Let me see. I think it's here. Yes. Can you see this?
Yep.
Okay. So this is the original Greek. Anybody can read it? No, right? Neither I. But this says, Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with you. Okay. And this is so interesting. Why? Because the full of grace in Greek is said here, kehairo temene. And kehairo temene, for those who have studied Greek and can tell us, you know what it means? It means full of grace is not just our full of grace, means so full of grace that there is no more place to fill up. Okay, so it would be a gigantic redundance, a full of totally full of more full of grace. Okay? So for our understanding, doesn't express full of grace. But for what the Greeks wanted to say was that Our Lady was so full of grace that number one, there was no more space for anything else. And number two, you could not, this is what kehairotemene means, that you cannot add anything else even if you wanted. So imagine I have a glass of flour, right? A flower pot. So I can put water, I can put a little bit of maybe sugar, there just to keep the water going, and I can add flowers. And we're going to say it's full, correct? Well, kehairotemene doesn't mean that. It means that the only thing you can put is grace. And there is nothing else you can put in there. So when we say that Our Lady was full of grace, what does it mean? That she was total grace. Okay? That she was so full of grace that there was nothing else in her that could be actually placed. And why is this so important? Because Our Lady was conceived in grace. Our Lady was conceived without original sin. And Our Lady was conceived in such a manner that there was nothing else in her but grace. Okay? So when we talk about the Immaculate Conception, what is the Immaculate Conception? It's not that she conceived immaculately Jesus. What does it mean is that she was totally conceived without any sin. And in other words, let me go back here. There we go. So what does it mean in particular? That Our Lady is so special that God suspended, right, the laws of original sin for her. Now somebody could say, but how this did happen? Because, we are all conceived in original sin. And until Jesus came to redeem us, it was impossible, absolutely impossible for any person to have grace. So how come Our Lady had it, right? And for many, many centuries, that was the theme of discussion. How come that Our Lady has that when, no human being has been redeemed yet? They went on and on and on, and they discovered something. Finally, all the saints wanted to say that Our Lady was conceived without original sin, but they didn't know how to demonstrate it. So how did they find out? One saint came and said, well, the solution is this. For God, everything is present. So the redemption in the eyes of God is always present. For us, we're inside the time. For us, it's past, present, future, and everything else. Not for God. For God, everything is present. So if at a certain moment, Jesus was going to redeem the whole mankind, what he was going to do? Well, I can choose my mother. I can pick up those merits I gain there in the what you future, and I can apply them to my mother. So now my mother can be born without original sin. I'm going to choose the purest of all mothers, right? Because she has to be the one that is going to give birth to God. And so what did God do? He applied all those merits. He applied them to his mother before time. So at a certain moment later on, the redemption was going to come anyway. So she was conceived without original sin. That's the Immaculate Conception. Let's go to St. Joseph. So do you imagine you have a lady that is so full of grace, as we have spoken about, as we have said. There is nothing in her that is not grace. Que Jairo temene, there is no, you can't add anything, because that word in Greek, don't forget, excludes everything else. So if I'm going to say you're full of grace, that means you're only grace. Imagine how impressive Our Lady is. So you are there. If she is like that, God could not choose a husband that could be less than that. He was not going to subject Our Lady, being so full of grace, being so pure, being so immaculate, being so everything, to a common husband conceived in original sin. Why? Because it wouldn't match, right? It wouldn't go. So who is St. Joseph? By opposition, we can see how he is and who he is. Because if he was worthy to be the custodian of Jesus, if he was worthy to be the husband of Our Lady, many theologians say that all of a sudden, St. Joseph also was conceived without original sin. Following the same applications as we apply to Our Lady. So see how the perception of St. Joseph completely changes, right? Because St. Joseph is someone who had to be at the height of Our Lady. So I don't know if this completes a little bit your vision, if it helps you a little bit to have more understanding, because in the same way, how do we find out Christmas? Well, by comparison, right? We don't have the right proofs, but by comparison, we have the proofs, right? Because of the schedule, because of the calculations, and completely matches. Well, the same thing with Our Lady and St. Joseph. About Our Lady, we know a lot. Every year, I think, is 1,000, 2,000 books written about Our Lady. The theologians are always finding out more things about Our Lady. She, it's incredible how many apparitions she has, throughout history. But St. Joseph is virtually unknown, unknown from the perspective of, well, there is an explanation for that. Are we all there? You're already sleeping? Did I put you to sleep? Not yet? No? Okay, very good. So let's go to the next part I wanted to talk about. St. Joseph, right? Why is he so, and by the way, let's add St. Joseph here. Why is he so special in these matters? Revelation. What is the revelation? Anybody? Revelation is this. There are truths that only God can tell us. So, for instance, the Blessed Trinity. We're never going to find out what the Blessed Trinity is. Do you remember that story of Saint Augustine? Saint Augustine was walking, and he's one of the fathers of the church, right? And Saint Augustine, he was always trying to explain how it was: God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Spirit, three in one person, one God in three persons, right? And he was always trying to find this example and try to understand. So, being also a great, philosopher of the Catholic Church, put it that way, great theologian, one time he was walking by the ocean, and he was in the seaside, right? So you can figure yourselves, right, in the north of Africa, beautiful ocean and everything else. And then he's there, and all of a sudden he's thinking about this problem and trying to figure out how is it? Then he sees a little boy. And this little boy, right, was doing something that all boys like to do. He was running to the ocean. He had a little bucket. So he was going there, running to the ocean, fill the bucket up, coming back. He had a hole in the beach. So boom, he would put some water. And then run again, to the beach, put some more water, and then come back and then put it there. And St. Augustine is thinking and thinking and thinking. And at a certain moment, he stopped thinking and says, what is this boy doing? And he went and asked, right? Hey, what are you doing there? Oh, me? Okay. You know what I want to do? Mm-hmm. You know all that water? The ocean, right? Yeah. Well, I want to pick it up, all of it, and put it here in this hole I have in the sand. Eh? It's gonna be fantastic. Okay, great. St. Augustine looks and says, but my child, it's impossible. How are you gonna put all that water